Hello everyone, it's me Dan, and I thought I'd be a really nice guy and make this video tutorial for the first task in Photoshop Advanced. Alright, so first things first, I've made sure that the file I'm using is some of the material that the school uploaded to Flutter. So there will be none of my own. This is what the school provided. So I go to File, I click Open, and I choose this image called Simon. The good thing about this image is actually it's really bright. It has its contrast. There's no fancy background being dark and everything. And you will really find out when you start working with different images, the darker they are, the more editing they need. And for this, it's just basically showing you a tutorial on how to do this, and then you can always just be inspired and move on and start creating really fancy stuff. First thing, I want to remove this lock from my document so I can start operating with the layer. Instead of calling the layer 0, I want to call it the original. And the reason why I like naming all my layers is because once we actually start working with websites, especially when it comes to the design, you're gonna have so many layers and you're gonna have folders, and it's just so much easier for you to navigate in your content when you name your layers instead of just layer 1, layer 2, etc. It's just confusing, especially for other people if they would like to work with some of the design as well, So it's just a good idea. Now this image here, I want to highlight it, or highlight the layer just by clicking it on the navigation down here in the right side. I go to Select, click Color Range. In the selection option, I click Shadows and OK. Now highlighted pretty much all the areas where we actually have a contrast to white. I click Ctrl C, Ctrl J, duplicated the layer with the contrast. I click Original again, select Color Range, instead of Shadows, click Midtones, click OK. Ctrl C, Ctrl J, same thing here. So now we have the difference between the contrast white and black. And then we also have all the lines in his face, jacket, etc. We really want those to make it really look good later on. Now I want to go into layer 2, which is the midtones. I click Edit, Fill, and I click 50% gray and make sure my blending option is set to normal, 100% opacity, and preserve transparency. We want that. Click OK. Go into layer 1, Edit, Fill. Instead of 50% gray, we click black. Same blending options, click OK. So now we have this very nice transparency. You can see basically just where it's bright, it removes it. So we have this transparency, and we want that for the face. We can always just increase the transparency, but for now it's just fine. You'll get the idea of it. I click these two layers, I click Merge Layers. I'll call this one the Edited. Alright? So what we want to do now is actually want to create some text. So we click File, New Document, and the width and the height is the same as your image. We want the same size because we basically just want to create a whole document filled with text that we then can put on our image. We remove the lock to edit it, and we click the text tool over here. Basically just create a nice square that's covering the entire document. We can go into a website called Lorem Ipsum. It's just a text filler basically. Highlight this column, Ctrl C, back to Photoshop, Ctrl V. Now you start duplicating just all the text that you want. You always choose whatever font you want and the text size and letter spacing, anything. It's basically how you want it. Click OK. We delete this layer down here, and we click Ctrl C and highlight. Ctrl C and click our layer here. That way we basically highlight all the text on this layer. We want to go into Edit, Define Brush Presets. And this is a library for you. So once you actually start working quite a lot with Photoshop, this is just a way for you to get back and recover some of your assets that you've used on previous projects. If you were to use a very nice brush, this is like a really good library for you. You'll get the hang of it once you actually start working more with it. So we just call this one Lorem Ipsum dummy text. Doesn't really matter what we call it. We go back to this layer here. We click Add New Layer. Here we go. and that is basically gonna be filled with white, because now we want a white background, and I'll explain in a second why. We create a new layer, we change the foreground color to black, and then we click our brush tool and we go down in the bottom where we have our dummy text, and we just click around center. That's where he is, I guess. Okay, back to our navigation. What we want to do is we want to disable the visibility of this layer here. We want to click this guy, the edited version, Control left click your mouse on the image, so we highlight all the lines in the image. We go to edit, copy, click on layer 2, and we want to click this down here, add layer mask. So now we combine them, and see, now it's actually getting some text. So that looks quite good. And we can add the visibility of this background color, and that's Simon. And just mouse in a bit more. And that's actually a really easy way of doing it. And you can see, if I want to increase the text size, you can always do that. It's just going back. You can also separate certain areas, like if you want the face to have a smaller text size. That's one way of doing it. But I think this is a very nice way of doing it as well. If you want to add some gradient to it, if you want to add some color to this text here, we simply just double click this layer up here to get our layer style out. We want to click our gradient overlay, and we highlight it as well. And then we go in here and we can just basically find whatever colors we're interested in. But I guess this one is actually okay. We hit OK and OK. And click Save for web and devices. If you wanted a JPEG or a PNG, it's really up to you. Click Save. We call it Simon Typo. And there you go. I hope this tutorial helped you guys, and take care. See you around.